Welcome in everybody to the Halloween edition of the Four Down the Field podcast. We're back from break and we're going to do a recap of last week. It was week 8. I'm going to start with my matchup that I had with Alyssa. That started off on a Thursday matchup where the Rams took down the Vikings. Both Kyron Williams for Alyssa and JJ for me had good nights. I was able to get this victory. My team was just it came to play. I mean, Alyssa had a good week. She kind of got banged up. Amari Cooper, I believe, had a wrist injury, and you didn't really see much of him at all. Josh Jacobs and Kyren led the way, though, with Kate Otten, who was absolutely a nightmare for me. But at the end of the day, Alyssa just ran into a buzzsaw. She'll probably get back on track this week, but we'll get into that here in a few minutes. Another team that ran into a buzzsaw, but also had a great week themselves, was Marty. He ran into Jeff. Even though he scored 144 points, he still lost by 31. Um, yeah, I mean, Marty, with I think it was his best week of the year up to this point, but Jeff's team just is getting it going. I mean, Jalen Hurts, I have had him a couple of times. I'm very familiar with what he can do, especially if he gets in the inside the 5, that tush push. Sorry if you own Saquon Barkley. Bijan had it going though. Yeah, he got a touchdown, 23.6 points. Achan, 26.7. Ridley, 22.6, including 100 yards in the first quarter against the Lions. Cedric Tillman, I have him in one league. That was a hell of a pickup by Jeff. He had 28.9. Uh, Tucker Kraft, 16.8 points. The only player that really didn't show up was Jordan Mason for Jeff, and it's probably good for Marty that he didn't. He might have gotten to 200 points if he didn't get injured. He only had 1.8 points for Jeff, but Marty with a good match or a good game though. I mean, he had 17 from Pittsburgh. Uh, James Cook, Ramondre Stevenson, Brock Purdy, all with good weeks. It's just Jeff was just too much. It was David versus Goliath, and Goliath prevailed. Going on to Brenna's matchup with Bird. Brenna with the big win. She won convincingly, holding Bird to less than 100 total points. She finally got good production from her team in general. I mean, there was not one player that really went off except for Lad McConkey, and there was really no one that really didn't do anything. It was just a good week for her. She's got Jonathan Brooks coming back, I think, this week. We'll see what his impact is for Carolina. But yeah, big win for her. And she'll try to keep the momentum going this weekend. Jim took down Adam. Jim finally got to 130. I know he mentioned a week or two ago that he hasn't gotten to 130 since like week 1 or week 2 or something like that. Well, he finally got back to it, and just like Brenna, it wasn't one person really. It was just a really good performance. Kyle Pitts went off for Jim just a little bit. He got lucky as hell. I have him in one league, and um I thought that one touchdown, I thought he actually lost it, and I think it was actually going to be a safety, but he was actually rewarded with that touchdown, and it ended up being a monstrous play for him. I don't know how anybody can do that in the NFL at this point. I mean, it was just flat out embarrassing. He actually was holding the ball backwards. I don't know, just embarrassing though. If I was Bo Schembechler, he'd be riding the bench. He wouldn't be playing this week. You name it. It's just unacceptable. Adam, on the other hand, just had a rough week. He eclipsed 100 just barely. Brian Robinson Jr. didn't really do much for him. C.J. Stroud, just too many injuries for him right now. Um, for Houston, for him to really get it going. No Nico, Stephon Diggs gone for the year. Big loss there. No money in for Fab. He already spent all his money as well. It's not looking good for Adam right now in that regard. He can't afford for anything else to go wrong. He's hoping to get DK Metcalf back. Pacheco, is he going to come back? We really don't know. I think he will, but there are people saying that he might not come back at all this year. Mike Evans also is out. He's just riddled with injuries right now. He'll get some of those guys back, but it wasn't enough for Adam this week. Jim got the victory. I think he improved to 4-4. Jeremy took down, or sorry, Jack took down Jeremy. Jeremy fell to 1-7. He is at the bottom of the league right now. Wish he was here to talk about his team. Not sure if he'd really want to though. His roster is not that bad. It's just a little bit too little too late for Jeremy. Jack with a decent week, 133 is going to win most times. Jack or I'm sorry, this is Drew. I saw Jack in that name. This is Drew. Drew with the win. Sorry. Drew took down Jeremy. Drew didn't really have a great game from Lamar, but he did enough in the fantasy point area to get the win. 28 points is probably like for a floor for him. He didn't really play that well, and 28 points when Lamar doesn't play that well is still something really good. Joe Mixon, he's been running hot lately. I think that's going to cool off once Nico comes back. But we'll see. I mean, he hasn't been averaging I think he's like averaging 4.9 yards a carry right now. He hasn't done that since his second year in the league. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable. Kareem Hunt, big pickup for Drew a couple weeks ago. That's been a valuable addition to his team. I see that continuing. So I don't know when Pacheco is going to come back. So big pickup there. We already mentioned Stephon Diggs going down. He's on IR. Well, yeah, it was a solid win for Drew. And that does take us to Jack's team where he beat Shane. Shane with 141, but it still wasn't enough. Jack came out, put the whipping on him, 154. We're going to talk about Jack's team here in a little bit when we get to the power rankings. But yeah, big win. I didn't catch any of that San Francisco Dallas game, but CD just went off. I'm assuming he had like a very long touchdown or something to get him to that number. Zay Flowers, the addition of Deontay Johnson, we'll see what happens there going forward, but I think Zay is still the number one there. But yeah, even Olave, who I'm not high on, I honestly, I don't know if it's just because he's a Buckeye or what, but I've never been a believer in him. But that's probably just me being naive. He got him 18.7 points. So yeah, Jack takes down Shane and improved to 5-3. Shane fell to 4-4. So let's go to this week's matchups here, presented to you by Viagra, Bengay, and DraftKings Sportsbook. So we're gonna dive right in. We just talked about Shane. He just lost to Jack last week. He's running into a buzzsaw this week. He's going up against me. I mean, look at my lineup, you guys. Look at my production. There's nobody that has had more weeks scoring over 130 than me. I've been very consistent. I like where my team's at right now. They're healthy for the most part. I know Njoku just missed practice today. I think that was more of just limiting him, keeping him healthy, but we'll see what that report says here in a little bit. Debo is on a bye this week. That's all right. I'll get through it. I like David Montgomery against the Pack. They can't stop the run. I see Derrick Henry having a good game against Denver at home. I think they're going to feed the beast there. Jonathan Taylor with Joe Flacco. I think Taylor's actually going to be improved after Richardson's been out. More opportunities in the red zone, I think, are coming for him. He's going to get some passing game out of the backfield. I think Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, and David Montgomery is the best trio on any roster right now, and running backs come at a premium. And Joku, if he's healthy, I like him with Jameis. Jameis is going to sling that rock. So I like me taking down Shane this week. Shane's running back situation is just kind of iffy. It's been iffy pretty much all year, honestly. I saw that he slid ETN back into his starting lineup for this matchup. I don't know if he's really going to be who Shane thought he was. His Shane's name, Chubb Etienne. He's putting a lot of pressure, I think, on both Nick Chubb and Travis Etienne. Too much pressure, not good. It's not like Njoku's tribe It's not just one individual, it's a whole tribe coming together to get wins for me. And that's what's going to happen this week. Give me Njoku's tribe with the Jim Carrey, Ace Ventura dance gif going on there for the icon. We're going to slide into, I think, one of the better matchups of the week. We got Jeff, who is 7-1, going up against Bird, who fell to 4-4 last week after losing to Brenna. In this matchup, I was going back and forth on it, honestly. But ultimately, I'm actually going to go with the upset here. I'm going to go with Bird. I just like Joe Burrow against Vegas at home. Cincinnati's got to get going. He acknowledged that after the loss last week in that press conference. But he's also got Gibbs and Ken Walker the third. I think both those guys can light it up. I think they're going to have good weeks. AJ Brown against Jacksonville at home. Yeah, give me that. I know it's going to somewhat take away from Jalen Hurts if he performs well, but I think Hurts is obviously going to get in the end zone without passing to AJ Brown. Obviously, the tush push is going to be in effect. Devonta Smith, I think, is going to get in the end zone as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at these matchups. I don't think Ridley's going to repeat anything close to what he did last week against the Lions. I don't think Achan's going to have a great game against Buffalo. There's just certain things that I like about Bird's team here, where I think that he's going to pull off the upset here. He's catching Jeff on a good week. Higgins is still out, I believe. Well, he's not going to play. Jordan Mason on a bye. Nico still on IR. Goddard hasn't returned yet. I mean, this is the week if you're going to take down Jeff if you're Bird, and I think Bird does get it done this week, making Jeff fall to 7-2, and Bird climbing up that little. Bird's been hot. He's on the verge of entering my power rankings, even though he lost to Brenna last week. I do like his team. I think Burrow, Gibson, Walker, and Brown. Like I said, that's a good nucleus, and I'm curious to see where that's going to go going forward. Next matchup, we have Marty, who had, I think, his best week last week when he lost to Drew. Or who did he lose to? It doesn't matter. Marty lost. Nothing new. I love him, Marty. But yeah, he's gonna lose again this week. Marty doesn't even have. Oh, he has Pat Mahomes, so he'll get less than 20 points probably in that position. Brock Purdy's on a bye. That's why I'm bringing it up. Tank Dell in a tough matchup against the Jets tonight. I do not like Tank Dell tonight. I know that there's a lot of injuries, but I mean, it's not a good matchup. He might get force fed. 13 points, I would say, is his ceiling, not his projection. James Cook, Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah, I mean, that's good stuff right there, but it won't be enough. Yeah, I'm gonna go Jim here. He's got to get it going. He's got Tyreek with Tua again. He'll probably get force fed. But the real reason why I like Jim this week is 'cause I think Brees Hall is gonna have himself a game tonight. Uh, Devontae Adams, I don't love until I see it, but Pitt's playing great. I already mentioned Devonta Smith getting the end zone. I think Aaron Jones against Indianapolis. Yeah, I like Jim in this matchup. I think he's going to beat Marty. Moving on, we got Drew versus Brenna. Lamar, obviously, I think is going to play. He didn't miss a snap last week in that game against Cleveland, but he's questionable. I think he's going to get have a good week this week. Um, but yeah, looking at this, Brenna obviously needs to keep the win train going here. I don't know if she quite gets it, but I'm gonna pick her because Drew's due for a loss. He's riding a 6-game win streak. It can't be sustainable here. Lad McConkey, big week last week. He's emerging as the number one wideout for the Chargers. Jaden Reed for receiver for Green Bay. If anyone's going to get in the end zone against the Lions as a wide receiver, I like him this weekend. I think you could see a lot of Rashad White out of the backfield getting some pass work. She picked up Stafford. That's a big pickup, as I already mentioned, Nakua and Cup in the last podcast. Um, I think Stafford's going to be a good addition to Brenna's team moving forward, and I think Kincaid gets in the end zone. I think she's going to shock the world, if you would say. I think she's going to take down Drew in this matchup. And Brenna's kind of getting up. If Stafford can do what he needs to do, I think that Brenna is actually going to be somewhat relevant here moving forward. She's not going to be the pushover that she was. So we'll have to see what happens there. If you were asking Jeremy or Jack, Drew's team sucks. Management's terrible. I'm not going to go that far, but I do think he gets the loss this week. Moving to Alyssa against Adam. Alyssa's 3-5. Adam's 4-4. Alyssa's just been tearing it up. Let's pull up Alyssa's last couple weeks here. I think her team's just been going off. Where is it at? Unicorn Princess. Yep. So 124 this past week, 153 the week before, 148 in a loss, 138 in a loss, 131. I mean, yeah, she's been putting up points. So what I'm going to do this week for this matchup is I'm going to go with Alyssa. I'm going to go with the Unicorn Princess. Not a good matchup for Josh Jacobs against Detroit. But if it's Malik and not Jordan Love playing, I think Josh Jacobs is going to get force fed, assuming he is going to play. Adam slid Metcalf in. That might mean that Metcalf is going to play. But coming off that injury, I know he's got that Geno Smith stack. He's going to need that connection in the end zone once, maybe even twice, I think, to take down Alyssa this week. But yeah, give me Alyssa. She's got Kate Otten. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen there after last week. With no other weapons, Kate Otten might just be getting force fed. Nakua, I think, is going to feast. Kyren's Kyren. I'm going with Alyssa in this one. No, sorry, this is where I got mixed up before as well. I knew Jack and Jeremy were going to be facing, and I saw Jack's name in the recap of last week. But it is Jack versus Jeremy. Jack 5-3, Jeremy 1-7. Who did I? Well, let me look at my notes here for this one. I'm looking at this, and I have okay. That's what I thought. Just want to double check before I make an ass of myself. So yeah, Jack is projected for 145.6. He's got some good matchups this week and hit for his players. However, I am going Jeremy in this matchup. Sorry, Jack. It's just I think something needs to happen. Jeremy can't keep losing. His lineup isn't that bad. And he's got Cutback, Amon-Ra in a big game against Green Bay. He didn't start Daniels last week, which I don't know why he didn't. He knew he was going to play. I mean, that's obviously better than running out anybody else, even though Russell Wilson's not been playing bad. Wasn't the reason why he lost, but you can talk about management there. How do you not play Daniels there? I don't know. But anyway, I think he's going to redeem himself this week. He hasn't even slid in a defense yet that's active. He will eventually, and that projection will be closer. And yeah, I'm going Jeremy. Another upset. Week of upsets, baby. Just not in my matchup. Change right into a buzzsaw. Let's go into the power rankings here. ESPN showing that the top 4 power rankings are Jeff, Drew, Jack, and then myself for the top 4. I gave it some consideration. I did put Jeff back at that top spot after that 175-point performance last week. Drew 6-2, 6-game win streak. I'll give respect where it's due there. Drew's my number 2 team, followed by me. We talked about me. I've been over 130 points more than anybody else this year. I think I'm getting it going. I'm getting our dub this week. And then I only have 4 teams. Jack is the 4th team. And then if you wanted to mention the 5th team in my power rankings, it'd be a toss-up between Shane, Alyssa, Jim, and Bird. I think those are right there on the cusp of entering into the power rankings. We are in week 9. It is kind of like moving week. You're kind of finding out who is who. I'm sorry, week 7 through 10 is moving week. We are still in the middle of that. Teams are still jockeying for position right now, finding out what's what. But we are about to get into the seeding range here, 11 through 14. That's where people are going to start trying to fight over seeds for the playoffs and try to get into that top spot. But we'll see if Jeff can slip up a few times to make that possible. But that is going to wrap it up this week. Good luck, everybody, and happy Halloween.